newsroom as our CNN Global War coverage begins. It is 8 p.m. on the East Coast. Now, this is the exact minute President Trump had set as the deadline for launching the destruction of Iran's civilization. Bombing it back to the Stone Ages is what he had threatened. The latest of a string of threats and deadlines and deadline extensions dating back to the 21st of last month. 4 bellicose threats, all of which rattled markets and shocked consciences and ultimately were not followed through on. Tonight, though, after promising what many legal scholars pointed out would likely be a war crime, the president posted this online. It's lengthy. I want to read it to you in full. It begins, based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agreed to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The president goes on. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. He adds, we received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. The president closes with, on behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter. A short time later, a senior White House official told CNN that Israel is on board with this, answering one key question, even though just moments ago we got reports of more incoming missile fire from Iran. We'll have a live report from Tel Aviv shortly. Iran's National Security Council has also weighed in, saying in a statement that Iran has achieved a great victory and forced the United States to accept its 10-point plan. Iran's foreign minister added this online, I hereby declare on behalf of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations. He continues, for a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations. A lot to discuss during our 2-hour global war coverage tonight. First, quickly, how we got to this point, the day beginning with the president making that threat that no president ever has. He made it on his social network, quoting now, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. That was preceded by this threat yesterday.
We're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and after that, they're gonna have no bridges, they're gonna have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah, Stone Ages.
But today, that kind of language drew criticism across the political spectrum, in addition to a push from Democratic lawmakers for war powers legislation and the president's removal under the 25th Amendment. There were new expressions of concern from some Republicans.
I am hoping and praying that President Trump this really is bluster. I do not want to see start blowing up civilian infrastructure. I do not want to see that. We are not at war with the Iranian people. You know, we are trying to liberate them.
Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said online today that the president's threat against Iran, quote, cannot be excused away as an attempt to gain leverage in negotiations. Additionally, she called the president's rhetoric, quote, an affront to the ideals our nation has sought to uphold and promote around the world for nearly 250 years. Well, there will be no follow-through on the rhetoric, at least for now. However, all this has driven oil prices to record highs. The spot market price of a barrel of benchmark Brent crude settling today at $144. Gas prices, though not yet in record territory, now stand at $4.14 a gallon, up $1.16 since the war began. I want to go to get the latest from CNN, our CNN White House correspondent Kristen Holmes and CNN Senior National Security Correspondent Zach Cohen. We'll start with Kristen. Is it clear exactly what the U.S. and Iran have agreed to as any kind of a framework for these upcoming negotiations? Because it looks like this puts Iran in control of the Strait of Hormuz, certainly for the next 2 weeks.
It does certainly look like that, and that does appear to be what at least is going to happen for these 2 weeks. We know that both sides are agreeing to a ceasefire. We also know, of course, that they're reopening the Strait of Hormuz, although it's unclear what the circumstances around the reopening are in terms of, is this going to cost money? Is there going to be a toll? We just aren't clear on exactly what they're starting from. Now, President Trump has talked about this 10-point plan, a basis for negotiation. Now, we are seeing a lot of bluster right now as both sides are taking credit for winning this. Essentially, we have a statement here that was from the council, this Iran's Supreme National Security Council, that says that they won the war, and it lays out what they believe is in 10-point plan. It does not give any kind of actual details, but just says that essentially the United States bent to Iran. When we asked the White House about this 10-point plan, they just said that this was a jumping off point. They would not give any details. And then they said that it was President Trump and the U.S. military that got Iran to back down. So it's a lot right now in this time period of everyone saying the other person is backing down. But what we do know, of course, is that there is now a 2-week ceasefire, that the Strait of Hormuz will be open, though we don't know the conditions, and that Israel has agreed as well to this ceasefire, which is key in all of this. But when we talk about Israel, it is important to note we don't know how long they've agreed to this. They've agreed to this one portion of a 2-week ceasefire to hammer out negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, but we don't know what this looks like down the road.
Yeah, I know Jeremy Diamond is reporting on concerns already from Israel about this plan. Joining us now is CNN's Zach Cohen. So what are you hearing from Pentagon officials tonight?
Yeah, Anderson, a U.S. official telling me that at least for now, the U.S. military has paused strikes inside Iran. So we're seeing a tangible impact of this supposed ceasefire deal that has been agreed upon, it sounds like, by both the Trump administration and the Iranian government. But digging a little deeper into this 10-point plan that the Iranians say that at least in practice that the Trump administration has agreed to, one of the conditions is really striking, and it is a demand that the United States withdraw all combat forces from all bases and points of deployment within the region. So not just in the general proximity of Iran, but in the region itself, all of the bases, including the bases that we've seen be hit by Iranian missile strikes and drone attacks over the last several weeks in retaliation to these U.S.-Israeli strikes. So, and that comes in addition to this other demand about the Strait of Hormuz, which effectively amounts to Iran demanding that the United States formally legitimize Iran's control of the strait going forward. And that's something that we have to remember was not the case before these joint U.S.-Israeli strikes first began. Iran did not formally control the Strait of Hormuz. That was something that they did in response to the U.S.-Israeli military operations, and it's something that has ultimately led us to this point, and was the key motivator, it seems, for President Trump to agree to this ceasefire. He was realizing, it seems, that there was a shot clock here, and an urgent need to reopen the strait, but at what price remains to be seen. It sounds like there will be talks in the near future between Iran and the U.S. and Pakistan, but according to these 10 demands that the Iranians are putting forward, including the withdrawal of U.S. forces from all bases in the region, it'll be shocking to see if the Trump administration agrees to that among the other ones.
Zach Cohen, appreciate it. Joining me now is former Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, who led the team who negotiated the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran. CNN's global affairs analyst Brett McGurk, who served in senior national security posts under the last 4 presidents, including President Trump's first term, and CNN global affairs analyst and Iran expert Karim Sajapolak, who's currently a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Brett, first of all, what's your reaction to the president's announcement of this and the Iranians' response?
I think, Anderson, there's a lot we don't know. Obviously here, the guns are going silent for a time, but not surprising if you do this all in public like what's happening. You have the Iranians always demand, as Wendy knows, the last, whatever it is, in a military exchange, the last shot, in a negotiation, the last, edit to the text. And they're coming in and basically saying, you just had it on screen, the Strait of Hormuz is open in coordination with their armed forces. Anderson, that is not a return to status quo antebellum, how it should be, with free passage of the strait, and that's a hugely problematic outcome if that's what we
that's a huge victory for Iran, because Iran was not in control officially of the strait before this.
Right, so I think the test here over the next 48, 72 hours, are ships passing freely through the strait, clearing that backlog, or are they stopping and paying a toll to Iran, the system that they've set up? So we'll see. I mean, I'm talking a lot of people who, honestly, Anderson, don't know. People who are very close to this in terms of how it's going to go. I don't know. President Trump's statement suggested it'll be free passage, free complete passage, and the Iranians put out a statement saying that you have to coordinate with their armed forces. So that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, Kareem, the statement is safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be, quote, be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations. It also talks about coordinating with the armed forces and this confirming a unique economic and geopolitical position for Iran.
You know, Anderson, Iran wants to essentially normalize its control over the Strait of Hormuz as its Panama Canal, and they want
Which it wasn't previously.
No, the Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway, and they want to make it an Iranian waterway to take tolls from each ship that passes through, which is making them the most important export of oil at the moment, because 20% of oil, LNG, fertilizer passes through the strait, and they want to do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, they say that they want reassurances that they're not going to be attacked again in the future by the United States and Israel. And number two, they believe they deserve compensation for the billions of dollars in damages they've endured. I'm very skeptical that they're going to be able to get those assurances. So long as their official slogan is death to America and death to Israel, and they're committed to their nuclear program, their missiles and drones and proxies, they're not going to be able to get those reassurances. So in my view, that we can breathe a temporary sigh of relief, but I don't think we're anywhere near a permanent resolution to this conflict.
And Wendy, this has nothing to do with, there's nothing in this about the long-term nuclear program that Iran has, which is probably number one. Right now, the Strait of Hormuz is the biggest issue for the United States, but the nuclear future of Iran is probably a bigger issue for the planet. Do you believe the Iranians are negotiating in good faith here? Have they won this round?
Well, I think what you've heard from both Brett and Kareem is absolutely right. Iran is in control of the Strait of Hormuz. They're also in control of their enrichment stockpile. That really hasn't been discussed at all in this 2-week break. We see that we are in much worse shape. It's a much more hardline regime now than it even was before. I'm sure Kareem would agree with that. And as a result, it concerns me that now they will believe they need a nuclear weapon to act as a deterrent from future attacks by the United States, Israel, or anyone else for that matter. And if that is in fact where this goes, then indeed there will be many other people in the world who will want nuclear weapons as well. I think the really tough part here, as Brett pointed out, is we don't know how much this will hold for 2 weeks. And there is a wide, wide gulf, as Kareem said, between where the president has said he wants to be and where this 10-point plan is. They're not even in the same universe. And these negotiations are very tough. They take more than 2 weeks. I'm not even sure you could get a framework. And the fact that the president has said he's going to base this on the 10 points that have been laid out by Iran, most of those points are in Iran's favor.
Right. When you were negotiating, how long did the negotiations for the deal you got in 2015, how long did that take? It was like a year, wasn't it?
No, it took 18 months to get there.
18 months, yeah.
It
So
was
the
a
idea that
long
this is going to
slog.
happen in 2 weeks, that's just not the Iranian clock.
That is not the Iranian clock, and this is a very technical negotiation. Everything from how you ensure safe passage in the Strait of Hormuz to what you're going to do about sanctions relief and what that looks like, to what happens to that stockpile, what Iran can continue to do. Iran has said, and the Supreme National Council said again tonight, they have to hold on to their right to enrichment. They believe that is a right they have in the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The United States has never believed it is a right. We only acceded to the possibility under strict monitoring and verification. There's a lot that has to be worked out here. And I think the really horrible thing about what's happened over the last few weeks is that the United States has lost its moral authority in the world. We have pushed back our alliances. This really has not only created some positives for Iran, and to be sure, we have hurt their missile program, we have hurt their facilities, we have hurt their Navy, no question about all of that. But we've also made heroes in some ways out of Russia and China who have helped Iran and now think they can do whatever they want because the United States did.
Brett, do you agree with that? Because that's a really bleak look at, if that's what came out of all of this, that's bleak.
Yeah, Anderson, I tend to withhold judgment until we know a little more and see. We don't really know what's happening in Iran. We don't know the strength of the system. I do think we've lost the plot, though, Anderson. I mean, you and I were talking back in January about the protests by the Iranian people, and I feel like we've lost that critical.
You think destroying their civilization is a...
I know
is a
exactly.
decline?
I mean, what we saw play out in the last 24 hours was so counterproductive to everything, and particularly the Iranian people are protesting for their civilization, for Iranian nationalism against the Islamic Republic, the Islamic State of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we've lost that. So, look, we have to see as the dust settles here what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. How intact is this regime? Is the supreme leader even in control? Is he alive? We actually don't know these answers, so we'll have to see. But obviously, there are a lot of problematic elements here right now, and I think it's going to require some good diplomacy to try to pull them together.
Kareem, I mean, yes, huge devastation of facilities, capabilities in Iran, but is in some way the regime, are they a worse regime than the one that was in place before, which was, a suicidal, fanatical regime? Is Iran stronger in some weird way than they were before?
I think their ability to project power is weaker, but their hold over society right now is stronger.
Over Iranians.
Over Iranian society. It's a military government, Revolutionary Guard government, with all of their fingers on the trigger. And, our greatest ally against the Iranian regime are the people of Iran, who for 47 years have been, fighting for freedom. And, they believe that Iranian civilization is being suffocated by this regime. So President Trump's threats to destroy Iranian civilization is strategic malpractice. You want to be on the side of Iranian people, on Iranian civilization, because this Cold War we've had with Iran is never going to end until we have new leaders in power in Iran whose organizing principle is the national interest of Iran rather than the revolutionary ideology of 1979.
Brett, if you are a regime which has long believed the U.S. wants to destroy you, and the U.S. president has said that he's willing to wipe out your civilization and bring you back to the Stone Ages, is giving up your nuclear weapon just from a purely strategic standpoint, or your nuclear program, is that a wise move?
No, I think as Wendy said, they will now have a strategic calculation to try to retain what they have and build it back. It'll be hard to build it back. They have to rebuild the centrifusion capacity and everything else to actually do anything with that enriched uranium. But no, they're sitting on 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium, Anderson, without any inspectors, without anything. And that's a big problem. And that is, again, we can't lose the plot here. It's the Iranian people, as Kareem just said, it's the missiles and drones, it's the nuclear, it's obviously support for terrorism. And we haven't necessarily here made any of that better. But again, I just want to withhold judgment as we go forward and see, even what just happened tonight, we still have some open questions, a lot of open questions.
I should point out that nuclear agreement that was made in 2015 through Wendy Sherman and many others, that was ripped up by the first Trump administration, which is what has ultimately led us to the position that we're in now. Wendy Sherman, Brett McGurk, Kareem Shahjapour, thank you. Coming up next, we'll go to